Last story for the day. I just left Zubiri. I had a nice little good hot plate of food, and I'm making my last probably I'm going to say 4 kilometers to Urbanitz. Should be pretty nice and easy going, so good time to wrap it up with a story. So when I had this encounter about the bunk bed, it really put me in a kind of sour frame of mind. I was angry and kind of pissed off and, just not happy about what happened and my interactions with this woman in the neighboring bunk, and I was just all... So they were having a pilgrim's mass that night, and I decided, well, let me go stop into the pilgrim's mass because maybe they'll have some inspiring message about, pilgriming across and putting up with things, and just maybe have a choir. And so they do have a beautiful, beautiful church there at the monastery. It's very gorgeous inside. Lovely, big, imposing stained glass windows. They didn't have a choir, but there was some singing, and it kind of echoed off all that stone and up into the archway. But the mass was obviously in Spanish, so if there was a uplifting message, I don't know what it was. And I didn't gain anything from that, but I did enjoy the music and the hymn and all that kind of good stuff. So I felt, okay, I'm kind of turning this around. So I went to my assigned dinner time, 7 o'clock, and it was these big round tables, and there were like 9, 10 people at each table. And when I walked in, you give them your little ticket, and she just, directed me to an empty seat. So I was at a table with nobody that I really knew, although it turned out that Annie Grace was across from me, the young lady from Minnesota. And so anyway, I'm talking with the young chap next to me. His name's Hector. He's from the UK. He's doing 12 days on the Camino. And so there was next to me an elderly Japanese couple. And I know they were from Japan because that's the only real English that the woman who I happened to be sitting next to really seemed to understand, was that they were from Japan. Where are you from? So we get our chicken. Everybody ordered chicken, and it comes around as these chicken thigh and a leg, and mine comes and Hector's comes, and his is like this emaciated little scrawny chicken thigh, and I got this portion that I'm like, oh, I don't want that much. So I turned to him and I said, can I trade with you? And he traded. Look at me just bargaining so much at this particular stop. But anyway, we traded, and then I looked over, and the Japanese woman and her husband had gotten these just massive portions. They looked like they were on steroids. It was just this huge piece of chicken, and the little wife's was all, she's like, it was too much. So she kind of, with gesturing and whatnot, said, can I give this to these guys too? And I'm like, well, sure, I'm sure they'll eat it. Just, go ahead, move it over there. And so she does, and kind of is going to share between her and her husband. And her husband's kind of making these like head in hand, sort of bowing his head and kind of shaking his head. And so I thought he was like, oh, there goes my wife again, giving our food away, or, embarrassing me in public kind of a thing. But then I look more closely, and I can see him grimace in pain. And the gentleman next to him also is becoming aware that something's not right. This guy's not feeling well. And then he just literally kind of slumps over and almost falls into the guy's next to him, into his arms. And let me flip this around because it's so pretty. You should see why look at me while we're going down this nice little country path. So anyway, the guy slumps to the floor. The other guy catches him, and I wave down the restaurant manager kind of thing, And the wife is very distraught, of course, naturally, and they shuffle this guy out of his seat onto the floor, and the woman next to the man turns out to be a nurse. So she jumps up, and she and her partner are working on this guy on the floor. People are coming in and just basically kind of stepping around him to go get their place at the tables. I was just kind of like, well, that's kind of weird. And I'm consoling the wife because she stayed at the table, and she was just, she was just, he was kind of like unconscious and just looking like he was in a lot of pain, or, well, he was unconscious, so he just looked like he was unconscious. But anyway, so they work on him, and the manager guy calls some people on the phone. The nurse person talks to some people on the phone, and the wife doesn't speak really much any English at all. And it turns out that a young man at the table is also Japanese, and so he jumps in to begin translating, and he's able to translate. And so, long story short, they revived him and saw him later on being worked on by the paramedics. But my thought was, how lucky, very unlucky that happened, but how lucky for them that he ended up at the table that they were at with a medical person right next to him, and then someone who spoke Japanese and jumped in and was able to start translating. So that was one of those instances where it was like, I can let the upper bunk thing go, and I'm just thankful that I would just be devastated if something like that happened. So there's the church part. Didn't do it, helped a little, but it was actually the misfortune of this poor Japanese couple, which actually turned out to be fortunate because I think he was all right. The next day I saw them. This was kind of just coincidental too. I'm starting to walk out of town, and this taxi pulls up, and this guy gets out of the taxi, and it was the driver. He's just, limping around, very dramatically indicating that there's something terrible wrong with his leg. And I see the little Japanese woman get out of the passenger side, and it's kind of almost like, what's wrong? What's going on? So, this couple, I do hope they make it out of here in one piece. So there's another story from the Camino. The expertise of strangers coming together to help this guy in his moment of need. All right, ciao from the Camino.